Hey guys, it's Mr. Johns. Welcome to episode 3 of our Happy Flappy Bird in Scratch series. If you haven't seen episode 1 and 2, I would recommend you go back and watch those first. In episode 1, we uploaded all the graphics and sounds that we would need for the game. In episode 2, we coded all of Flappy. And the result was Flappy was animated. Flappy went up and down a little bit as he flapped his wings, but that's just about it. And so we want to move on and code the pillars. So let's focus on the pillars. If you click on pillars and then costumes, you will see that I have what's called costume 7, which my students keep asking me why it's called costume 7. It just is. Is it a big hassle if I rename it? No, because when you code the pillars, it'll ask you which costume you're using. And so if this was called something else, so okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Once and for all. So what should we call these? What are these called? I have cacti. I have seaweed 2. These are pillars, but I don't want to just call them pillars. So are they Flappy pillars? Flappy Bird? Flappy pillars. Okay, fine. They're called Flappy pillars now. Are you happy? It's not costume 7 anymore. All right, let's see what that did to our coding. So click on pillars and then code. And the good news is there's less code here than there was doing Flappy. Because the pillars really, all they really do is slide from right to left. And they come in at random heights. That's why the gaps are at different locations every time it comes through. Now there is only one set of pillars, and they simply repeat. And so it's pretty simple. So let's take a look at it. So create a when clicked block, set the game over to 0, go to 300, 0. Okay, so it's x300, y0. Now what exactly is that? Okay, well, we are coding the pillars. Okay, so we know the x is left to right, and we know 0 is up and down. So I played with these numbers until I was just kind of happy with where that pillar starts. You can certainly change that number if you like. It could change the game. It will change the game a little bit. Okay. Then we want to hide. Okay. So we don't want to see the pillar right away when the game starts, right? See, there's no pillar. There's no pillar. As soon as I start the game, here's the pillars. Then they come in. Okay. So when we first start, tell them to go to x300, y0, and hide. Switch costume to Flappy pillars. See what happened? I changed the name from costume 7 to Flappy pillars, and it automatically changed it in the code. It's a smart program. I know not everybody loves it, but it is a smart program. I mean, behind all these colorful blocks of code, there is legitimate, real code, right? I mean, it's Scratch is just a colorful drag and drop way to create code, right? So we're going to switch costume to Flappy pillars. We're going to set the volume to 95. We're going to set the size to 200%. Okay, so because when I brought those pillars in originally, they were really small, so I doubled it up to 200. Interesting, down here I see I brought them in at 150, but I'm telling it to go to 200, so I must have changed my mind. But in the code, it'll change it to 200%. Wait until start equals 1. Okay, and then here's a forever loop. It's one forever loop all the way to the bottom. And we have if the pause equals 0, then wait until pause equals 0. Repeat this 21 times. Okay. Wait until pos equals 0. Wait for 0.01 seconds. That's nothing. That's fast. Okay? And then skip a block and have another wait until pos equals 0. Create a clone of myself. Okay, pay attention to this. Yes, I said you only have one set of those pillars, but we're going to clone it. Apparently 21 times. Okay? Which is good to know. Because after 21, what happens? I don't know. Pay attention to that as we play this. Wait until pos equals 0, skip a block, and say wait until pos equals 0. Okay, so there's your block. Make sure you can get all of that in. You can pause it here, type it all in, drag and drop, and then fit the rest of it right there. So the entire block is right here. That's the entire block if you need to count how many pauses there are. And just so you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 pauses. Okay, next code block. Let's zoom in a little bit. When I receive restart, wait until pos equals 0, and then delete this clone. Okay, so we're creating clones and deleting clones. Well, when I start as a clone, that's the pillars we're talking about. When I start as a clone, wait until pos equals 0. That seems like a common block right there. Wait until we're not paused. Clear graphics effects. Wait until, guess what? Pos equals 0. Set Y to pick random -90 to 90. Okay, what does this do? Because we're coding the pillars, what happens is we want the y-axis. Okay, we're saying, hey, pillars, we want you to pick a random spot on the y-axis, just between -90 and 90, not the entire screen, so it's jumping up and down. And you can play with those numbers, definitely, if you want to make it a little bit more challenging, maybe later on. But play with those numbers to see what happens. It's a good way to understand this. But we're telling it, hey, just go between 90 and -90. Every time a new set comes in, just be somewhere randomly between those numbers. And then show, please, show. So when I start as a clone, we're doing all this, and then we're showing up. Okay, repeat this 66 times. Okay, repeat 66. Where did I come up with those numbers? I just picked a number. Sounded cool. I mean, if it's a huge number and we never get there, it's fine. But if it's a small number like 2 and we get there real fast, then what? Right? There's something else maybe to experiment with. Wait until pos equals 0. Change x by -6. So that's just the location left and right by 6 pixels. Wait until pos equals 0. If the game over equals 0, then change the score by 1. Okay. If the game over equals 0, change the score by 1. What does that mean? Well, if the game's not over and you go through pillars, you score 1 point. If sound equals 100, then start the sound Super Mario Kart coin. Now that sound is just, I think I have another one called coin, but this one I found online from Super Mario Brothers. That's the sound I want to make. Every time you go through pillars successfully, you can use anything you want. Okay, but that's pretty common for side scrollers to have that coin sound, so it's kind of the classic sound. So if the sound equals 100, then start the sound Super Mario Kart coin, or whatever you have to use. Skip two blocks, wait until pos equals 0, and then repeat this next thing 15 times. Wait until pos equals 0, change x by -6, skip a block, repeat this part 4 times, change x by -6, change the ghost effect by 25, hide, skip a block, hide, delete this clone. Okay, the ghost effect is like a fade out. Okay, and you can definitely, again, play with these numbers if you want. You can, as long as you remember what they were supposed to be, because if it doesn't work, you want to know what to put it back to. Okay, so there is that code block right there. That's maybe the biggest one. So from top to bottom, that's the entire code block that you'll need to drag and drop in. Okay. Next code block, and the last 2 code blocks. We are telling it, hey, when the backdrop switches to, now you don't have to do this technically, okay? I may give extra credit for this because you do not have to have 2 levels, but it's so easy to do. The next level is just a different background and different pillars. And so I'm saying, hey, when the backdrop switches to desert, now previously under Flappy, I said, hey, after you score X number of points, and I think it's 5, and I need to change that now that the game's done. But after you get 5 points or 10 points or 20 points, switch to desert. Okay, so the background switched. Well, now that we're in the pillar area for sprites, we also want to say, hey, when the backdrop switches to desert, go ahead and switch the costume to the cacti both, which is what it's called. Could have been called cactus, could have been called cacti, but I just called it cacti both. So that just means we're going to see the desert background and the cactus pillars. Then we have, when the backdrop switches to underwater, switch the costume to the seaweed pillars. Now you can just keep doing this and doing this and doing this, which is kind of cool. So you can have, say, every 10 pillars, you can have a new level or challenge, and it should get and can get harder. So some of the things you can do, you can speed up the pillars, make them scroll faster. You can make the holes, the gaps very, very small. You can throw some enemies in there that are flapping around, things you have to avoid. You could also put some collectibles in there, like maybe floating whatever, floating fruit, floating money, floating something, something to collect. So anyway, that is it for pillars. So your task is to make sure you've uploaded the pillars and you have all the costumes that you want. If you want more costumes, I've said this before, but you just have to do a little bit of customization. And you can do it right in here. This is a very basic paint program in Scratch where you can do some things with graphics. I typically take it into a paint program, so I would just do a search for something clip art. If you have an idea, what's kind of tall and skinny, and then you think of, okay, let's find a clip art version of whatever that is. So, cactus came to mind, seaweed came to mind, but I'm not really sure what else there is. So you could do little miniature trees, whatever you can think of. Candy canes, because you could have a Christmas theme level. So then you take it into the clip art program and rotate one and just put them on top of each other like that and save it. And then you upload it into Scratch. Okay, so make sure you have the costumes you want, and then make sure you have all this code, and you should be pretty good to go. We still have a few more categories to code, which we will do in future episodes, and so please check back as I post those. And hopefully this episode helped you in your creation of creating Happy Flappy Bird in Scratch. For now, Mr. Johns is out.